What is common sense? Well, common sense is also known as horse sense. Now then, what is that? Well, first of all, I will tell you I did not live on a farm. But my house was very near a lot of farms when I was a kid. And so therefore, I was exposed to a lot of farmers. And they passed on their horse sense or common sense to me. So let me tell you what common sense is. Alright, I don't have to be a master electrician. I don't have to know anything about ohms, watts, amps, or volts to tell you not to take a hairdryer, plug it into the wall, and then step into a shower and try to take a shower while drying your hair. I don't need to be a master electrician to tell you that. That's just horse sense. Unfortunately, a lot of kids today don't seem to have a whole lot of horse sense. Now, I know what they're going to say. Well, don't you have an electric shaver that you can take in the shower and shave your face with? This one is not waterproof. I read the instructions. But they do have them where they are indeed waterproof, and yes, you can. But they make the waterproof case so the circuits in the shaver do not get damaged while you're using it in the shower. Now the thing is, even if you have one of these waterproof shavers, and that's okay, you just don't want to plug it into the wall and take it in there while it's plugged into the wall. That's still a bad idea. You unplug it, then you take it in the shower, and the battery helps you shave. Okay? Now then, common sense is when you know not to dig a great big hole in your front yard, because you may have electrical lines under your front yard, you may have water pipes under your front yard, you could have all kinds of things running under your front yard. You just don't want to dig so far deep that you hit any of that stuff. You could even hit your phone line doing that. Not a good idea. But see, you don't have to be a master electrician, plumber, or even a master telecommunications to know all this. This is common sense. Unfortunately, nowadays, when you buy a product such as this, it includes a big old instruction manual about 35 pages long to tell you all the things that you should have learned from common sense. So, this leads us to a point. This leads us to Dan Brown. Okay? I'm now going to do what I said I was going to do in the beginning, and I'm going to be a counter-influence to Dan Brown. I'm going to tell you the things he didn't tell you. And we'll see who you want to listen to. Now then, Dan Brown does not tell you that with an extensive vocabulary, you can be far more powerful in your speech than using derogatory expletives. You really can. I'll give you an example. The mere use of derogatory expletives is a powerful statement in itself. It forces kids to look this kind of stuff in the dictionary, which means they actually get smarter, because they get curious as to what you've just told them. And that's a good thing. Maybe if they looked a few more things up in the dictionary, they might develop a little bit of common sense and horse sense. Who knows? Well, one of the expressions I hear a lot is when people get extremely drunk. Well, let me tell you something. If you tell somebody that they have a bunch of excrement on their face, that's a powerful statement. A lot more powerful than using a derogatory expletive. I can tell you that. Now, here's the things Dan didn't tell you. How do kids learn derogatory expletives? Well, they could learn it from their parents. But if they don't learn it from their parents, then they often learn it from their peers, because they're trying to fit in. Does this sound anywhere close to familiar? It should. Don't kids use nicotine just to fit into the crowd? Or alcohol? Or other intoxicating substances? Of course they do. It's the same thing. Now then, Why do people normally use derogatory expletives? Well, they use them to deliberately offend people, to actually goad them into a fight. Okay? Whether this be a heated discussion or a full-blown fist fight, there you go. Do you really want to use derogatory expletives to invoke a physical battle? Or even a massively heated debate? Aren't there better ways to do it? Okay. Now, I will agree with Dan on this one. The more you use these derogatory expletives, the less effective they become. Then you have to search out more derogatory expletives to have the same effect. Doesn't that sound familiar? Isn't that the same thing as when somebody gets addicted to nicotine and then they have to have more nicotine to get the same effect as they did before? Alcohol, the same way. Intoxicating substances ranging from ecstasy to full-blown crystal meth, the same way. Yep. Sounds the same to me. And I don't even have to be an expert in psychology to tell you that one. As a matter of fact, I'm not an expert in psychology. But this is where I get my common sense and horse sense. Okay? Now, what Dan Brown won't tell you is that when you use expletives, these derogatory ones, on a regular basis, it gives the people you're using it on the idea that you have a lack of education. They actually start thinking of you as no better than a low-life peasant farmer. Do you want somebody to think of you as a low-life peasant farmer? I wouldn't. And it could give these people that you're using these expletives on, okay, so here you are, you're using expletives on other people. It might give those people the idea that you're demonstrating a symptom of a deep-rooted psychological problem. And this could range anywhere from anxiety disorder, remember social anxiety disorder that I talked about in the previous video? It could also be a sign of clinical depression or anger management issues. Might make you look like a bully. But will Dan Brown tell you that? Nope. I will, though. Okay. And the constant use of derogatory expletives can actually lead to other behavioral problems. Other types of addictions, violence, sadism. Do I really have to go on there? Now, the people that are listening to your derogatory expletives may then start getting the impression that you have problems expressing your thoughts and ideas effectively. Do you really want people to think that of you? Nope. And the thing is, when you do this, you're showing these people a lack of respect. Now, maybe you don't have respect for them, but do you really want them to see that? If you do, just go right on ahead. Anyway, now, there is a direct association with the constant use of derogatory expletives and strong emotions. This would include anything from depression to anxiety to anger issues. There's a direct association between the two, even physical pain. It also causes people to think that you have a lack of discipline. Do you want anybody to think that you have a lack of discipline? I wouldn't. In a previous video, I brought up John Wayne. And I told you people, he was an American actor. He starred in a lot of cowboy movies and military movies. He also starred in cigarette commercials. He smoked. But then he developed lung cancer and he got treatment for it. Once that was done, he decided to go on a worldwide campaign to tell kids not to smoke. Because he didn't want any of them to end up just like him. And he did this all the way to his death. That's a man I admire. I also said that Tracy Gold and Princess Diana took a cue from Karen Carpenter. And after Karen Carpenter died, they revealed their struggles with anorexia in the hopes that teenage girls would learn from them not to become anorexic themselves. Those are people I admire. Robin Williams, the same thing with substance abuse. He abused substances, he cleaned up his act, he now leads campaigns against substance abuse. That's a man I admire. The thing is that we can establish through those set of facts that the use of derogatory expletives could be just as much of an addiction as alcoholism, the use of nicotine, or any other intoxicating substance. As a matter of fact, there are people that will stand there and say, well, I can control my use of expletives. I've heard people say, hey, I can control my use of nicotine. I can control my use of alcohol. And there's some of the same people that get into so much trouble. Ask any addict what the first thing they'll say is. First thing they'll say is, I can control my addiction. But they really can't. My point is that if I don't stand here and be a counter-influence to Dan Brown, then I, in essence, would be saying, hey, it's perfectly all right to use expletives. Hey, I even endorse it. I can't do that. Because I don't know who's out there watching my videos. I know some of you, but I don't know all of you. And I would hate to think that somebody watched my video, got some erroneous impression that I either condone or endorse expletives. I would not want anybody to get that idea, because if they did and they started using those expletives on a regular basis, they could end up losing their jobs, and I've proven that. They could end up losing their relationships, and I've proven that too. I would not want anyone to lose a job or the love of their life because they were using expletives that somehow I managed to condone or endorse. I wouldn't want that to happen. So that's why I'm a counter-influence to Dan Brown. So, what else has Dan Brown not taught you? Okay. Dan Brown brings up the subject of value. He says that it's demand divided by supply. Absolutely erroneous. I've been in accounting. It's actually supply divided by demand. Let me illustrate. If you have 10 boxes of pizza and you have 100 people to feed, you have to divide the 10 boxes of pizza amongst the 100 people that have come to get it. So he's got the entire equation in reverse. Then he goes on to say that supply in the line of music files is equal to infinity. Sadly, he is correct on that one. Because so many people have illegally uploaded files for everybody to steal, and it is stealing, and I'll prove that. That now music files have come close to being valueless. But come close, they are not valueless, and I'm going to prove that. Let me give you an illustration. Let's say you see a vanilla cake in a grocery store. Alright? It looks delicious, but nobody wants to buy it. Maybe all these people are on diets and they just don't want to buy the thing because it'll ruin their diet. Well, just because nobody wants to buy the vanilla cake doesn't mean it's valueless. Why? Because the vanilla cake is comprised of ingredients: flour, sugar, milk, baking powder, vanilla, vegetable oil, and margarine. That alone gives it value. And of course, the person who baked it gives it value, because that person has to be paid. Like it or not, they made the cake. And they want compensation for it. And rightfully so, because they went to the effort making the cake, you didn't. So just because nobody buys the vanilla cake does not give you the right to walk into that store and swipe it off the shelf and steal it. That's called shoplifting. That's called theft. You go to jail for things like that. So where does a music file get its value? Well, there are musicians that sing and give that thing value. The musicians have instruments that have to be paid for, so that increases the value of that music file. The studio that they're in when they produce that music file is of value. And the editing software that they have to use to make that music file sound the way they want it to, that has value too. So all of these ingredients are included in that music file, thus giving it value. Now, how much value is dependent on who buys it. If not a lot of people buy it, it has a very little value. But it doesn't mean it has no value at all. Even a vanilla cake has value until it becomes no longer edible. And then, even then, it has value, because you can feed it to animals. And if not to animals, it can be turned into lawn mulch. Not very good lawn mulch, but it can be. Same thing's true with a music file. Are you getting the picture yet? So, from that point of view, I assert that that music file still has value, even if it's nothing more than to the families of those people who made it. It still has value. A lot of value? Certainly not. But it does have value. And let me tell you something. Everything has a cult following nowadays. You want some examples? How about the Rocky Horror Picture Show? That has a cult following. How about The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai? Ever heard of that movie? It has a cult following. Even Mad Max has a cult following. Personally, I couldn't stand to watch more than 15 minutes of the movie. That doesn't mean it doesn't have any value. So there you go. There you have it. When you illegally download a music file or a video file, you are no different than the person who walks in the store, swipes the vanilla cake, and takes it home with them without paying for it. You're just as guilty. I know Dan Brown won't tell you that, but I will. Let him disagree with me. Fine. But I'm telling you from a horse sense mentality, don't do it. And I didn't think I'd have to give a full-blown dissertation to tell you that, but I did. Hopefully you'll take some more horse sense from me and use it in your life. If you do, you will gain employment, you'll have friends, and you'll find the love of your life. I guarantee it. Do things the way I tell you, and you'll be a lot better off. Perfect? No. But you'll be a lot better off. And that's all I've got to say in this video. I will tell you more in a future video, so stay tuned.